Thanks for tuning in again this week. This week is spring break week from MCPS as well as the Passover Easter holidays. I hope that all those who are celebrating have safe travels and memorable gatherings with families and friends. I want to also welcome back MCFRS Urban Search and Rescue Team that was deployed in response to the devastating flooding in Kentucky. They worked long hours in difficult conditions, searching homes, conducting rescues, and providing support where it was needed most. I also want to thank the Family Support Network back here at home. They've made sure loved ones are informed and taken care of. This is a reminder of the professionalism, skill, and humanity that define our public safety teams. You've heard me say this before, this team is one of the best group of ambassadors of this county government. No matter where the disaster occurs or who's being impacted, they arrive to help. This week I'll talk about some of the events at the national level, but first I want to talk about something very local and important, and that is a bill that the council passed last week. I'm going to veto that bill, Expedited Bill 225, which would automatically give 20 years of property tax breaks to developers who convert or demolish commercial buildings and turn them into residential rental housing, without any focus on affordability and without any knowledge of whether or not developers need this giveaway in order to make the building profitable. This bill makes no sense. It gives away desperately needed revenues to the developers, and it is directly opposite to a bill the council passed and I signed that aimed to increase occupancy in office buildings. After I veto a bill, it goes back to the council. In order to become law, 7 council members must vote to override this veto. That's the process. So if you're concerned about the financial impacts of this bill the way I am, now is the time to speak up. Reach out to your council members, let them know what this means. And only one Councilmember Vice President Will Jawando, voted against this bill when it was in front of the council before. Unless 4 council members reconsider their vote, this bill will move forward over my veto. This vote was done so quickly there wasn't really time for them to consider all the unintended consequences. So this is a moment for them to support the veto and take a little bit more time. This bill was never properly vetted with the community, so residents have no idea this is really happening. This is especially important when so many federal workers and contractors are losing jobs. We don't know what this means for the region. This bill was sold as a way to help with housing, but what it does is automatically hand out 100% property tax exemption for 20 years to developers who are doing these conversions. I want to lay out some of the problems with this legislation. There's no analysis of a need for subsidies. And in contrast, we have examples of developers already doing these conversions that are financed by banks requiring no subsidies at all. That means that both the banks and the builders in these projects believe the projects are viable without tax exemptions. With this bill, we could easily see these projects with exemptions of $1 million or more for more than 20 years. No analysis was done about the necessity for this. There is no oversight, just a blank check. That's not sound policy. That's a corporate giveaway. That does not solve the housing problem. While the council raises the number of moderately priced dwelling units, MPDUs, from 15% to 17.5%, in the real world that amounts to 3 units out of every 100 units built. And I can tell you that under no circumstances would the county subsidize so few units for so much money. We do this normally, and we never pay this kind of money to get extra affordable units. And despite all the rhetoric from some council members about the need for more workforce housing, this does not address it at all. There is no requirement for workforce housing. They claim that we'll get more income taxes from the residents in these buildings, but that ignores how housing markets work. While the county is zoned for over 100,000 units, they don't get built all at once. They only get built in response to market demand. These units, first of all, aren't needed to supply housing that otherwise couldn't be built. We already have the zoning to build this housing if there's demand. If there's demand for 4,000 units in 2027, that's likely to be the number of units that are going to be built. And they'd be built from our existing capacity, which exceeds, as I said, over 100,000 units. They could be built from the 30,000 units that are already approved and can start as soon as the developer pulls a building permit. So if 500 units get built to replace offices, we get no property taxes for 20 years, while the other buildings would yield full property taxes, and the income taxes would be the same in both cases of where the units are built. If 4,000 new households are creating, we're getting the same amount of taxes, whether they're built in existing planned areas or whether some of them are built in these conversions. There is no economic upside from the county for doing this. They ignored that this proposal runs counter to another proposal they made a huge deal about when they passed it this year. This was the MOVE, Make Office Vacancies Extinct legislation that has the county incentivizing developers, companies, for bringing employees back into the buildings to fill them. In contrast, this proposal, which is part of More Housing Now, incentivizes developers to kick out tenants in the buildings that are 50% occupied. The requirement to get the permission to do this is that you be down to 50% occupancy. So are we seriously going to incentivize the developer to kick out office tenants? Since when did reducing jobs become a good idea? Is there no concern that kicking out existing businesses will not have negative repercussions for the county? Because these businesses may blame the county, which they should, for losing their space. At the end of the day, our objective should be to see enough housing built to meet demand and to attract companies to fill offices. We don't need to knock down offices. They'll likely continue to produce some taxes as opposed to losing that revenue while gaining no additional revenue than we'd otherwise get. This is a blatant bailout of some developers. Normally, when a developer's project is underwater, several things could happen. Some developers simply hand the keys back to the bank and walk away. I know this sounds strange. None of us could do that with our mortgages, but it's what builders are able to do. Their LLC, which is the Limited Liability Corporation that represents the building that is vacant, their LLC dies. They don't have to pay back lost or future rents, and they're able to continue building new projects with no liability from the old project. When the bank regains the property, they put it on the market at a price the market can bear, and the building is re-tenanted again. The other way developers with projects underwater have handled this is to sell the building at market value, which may be significantly below what they paid for it, but that is not the county's problem. And they then pay the bank what they receive, and then they also walk away. They do not and are not obligated to pay the balance of the mortgage on the building. The new buyer is now able to put the building on the market at rents affordable to new tenants. In either case, there is no need for us to do anything to see these buildings re-tenanted. We already have the authority to approve tax exemptions, and we've used it before for projects that include meaningful levels of affordable housing and actually need the assistance. We look at the gap and figure out whether the county support is necessary to make a project viable, and that's how it should work. But this bill skips all that. It simply assumes that every conversion needs a complete subsidy when they actually don't. We've already seen conversions happen without incentives, like the Guardian Apartments in Silver Spring. They took a 5 or 6 story building and added 6 stories to it. Developers converted that office building and built those units without any tax rate whatsoever. It's financed by a regular bank, built by a regular builder, and it will soon be on the market. The bill also creates an uneven playing field. Some developers will get 20-year tax exemptions, while others who are already building housing here get nothing. We're subsidizing market rate housing now. That's the new standard. You can bet that this is going to morph into a general request for the county to subsidize residential development for everyone. And all that's going to do is lead to further making it difficult to meet our budget needs in this county. And what about the long-term costs? This bill will drain hundreds of millions of dollars in future county revenues, money we'll need for schools, infrastructure, and public services. It continues a disturbing trend where the cost of growth are being shifted away from developers and onto residents. This has been going on for a decade now at least, and developers are being required to pay less and less, and all of us know at the end of the day, if things are going to be built and the money's not coming out of the development sector, it's coming out of your pockets at home. In building budgets for this county, we have had to cut important programs for our low income, our students, and others because we don't have the revenues to make a budget work with everything we need to do. Many council members don't want to consider tax increases to fund these programs, and yet they vote to reduce future revenues that will only exacerbate the problem. This bill sounds good, maybe, but when you examine it, it actually makes our situation worse. This is our moment to speak up. If you believe the county shouldn't be giving away property tax revenue with no accountability, let your council members know now. This is not how we build a fairer county or a stronger community. It was reported last week that federal agents from the Department of Homeland Security and the FBI have commenced what are being called wellness checks at the homes of migrant and immigrant families around the country. While we've not heard of any here in Montgomery County yet, I have serious concerns about why this is happening. First of all, it's hard to take the concept of child wellness checks for immigrant children seriously coming from a president who separated children from their parents and put them in cages. What they're really doing is targeting children as a pretense to get access into people's homes where they can observe the layout, can observe who lives there, in order to facilitate the more drastic actions that we know are yet to come. This is shameful, and it's perverse to pretend that the president and his cronies care about child welfare, whether we're talking about immigrants or otherwise. Furthermore, we've seen plenty of news reports about agents showing up in unmarked vehicles, covering their faces and arriving without clear coordination with local authorities. That is terrifying and anti-democratic. The idea that you would walk in masked with no identification to someone's house is not the way we're supposed to do things in this country. We've never seen this kind of approach to federal immigration and deportation processes before, not even in Trump's first term. Let me be clear, I expect any federal law enforcement official who's making a lawful apprehension in Montgomery County to show their government identification, and they should not be wearing a mask or face covering when apprehending an individual, unless they know that person has COVID. If you're going to do this dirty work, at least own it. Every day we inch closer to the fascist practices that typify Russia and Nazi Germany. Our country fought a war. Our grandparents laid down their lives to keep fascism from coming to America. And now it's coming here, carried by people who wrap themselves in the American flag. Our policy here in Montgomery County when it comes to immigration actions is clear. Our police officers do not engage in federal immigration enforcement activities. That's not new. It's part of the executive order, but it's been county policy for years before the executive order, and it's been reviewed and approved by the Maryland Attorney General's office. We don't want anyone to avoid calling the police when they need help. We don't want parents to be afraid to bring their children to school, and we don't want people hiding in the shadows because they're afraid of being targeted just for being here. At the same time, we're not interfering in federal enforcement actions. That's not our role. But we do have a responsibility to make sure that our residents know their rights, understand what's happening, and have access to trusted information and resources. That's why we encourage anyone with questions or concerns to contact the Gilchrist Immigrant Resource Center. The staff there can help connect you with legal support and language assistance and information about your rights under the law. We're a county that believes in protecting the dignity and safety of all people, regardless of immigration status. And speaking of things that were done by the federal government that are completely wrong, this week Senator Chris Van Hollen traveled to El Salvador to intercede in the case of Kilmar Abrego Garcia, a Maryland resident who was illegally detained and then shipped to El Salvador due to an administrative error, said the administration. He had no criminal record and was legally in our country. Even though the courts have directed the Trump administration to bring him back to Maryland, the Trump administration has so far refused. His plight and the anti-immigrant rhetoric reminds me of the famous quote from Martin Niemöller. First they came for the communists, but I did not speak out because I was not a communist. Then they came for the socialists, and I did not speak out because I was not a socialist. Then they came for the trade unionists, and I did not speak out because I was not a trade unionist. Then they came for the Jews, and I did not speak out because I was not a Jew. Then they came for me, and there is no one left to speak for me. I applaud Senator Van Hollen's effort and proud to join other elected leaders who rallied in Silver Spring to support that effort to bring this Maryland resident home and to call for the return to due process and democracy. It takes a lot of courage to go to El Salvador and stand up to the dictator there. And I wish the senator good luck in this trip, and I look forward to a safe return. This week, I attended a career fair for displaced federal workers, contractors, nonprofits, and vendors at the Silver Spring Civic Center. This event attracted more than 1,200 people looking for work or training. There were over 40 different state and local government agencies, academic institutions, and private companies sharing job opportunities. Another 22 organizations were there to help with resume writing, interview prep, and career support. This career fair was organized by the University of Maryland in partnership with the Maryland Department of Labor, the Montgomery County Government, WorkSource Montgomery, and Mobilize Montgomery. While I appreciate the effort of so many to create this event, seeing so many people at this job fair was sad and depressing. Quite frankly, without a Trump administration, there would have been no need for a job fair. All those who are attended are dealing with the chaos and uncertainty that Trump has brought about. Jobs are being cut. Programs are being frozen. People who spent their careers serving the public are being told they may not have a place anymore. A group called Work for America is connecting people with state and local government jobs that fit their skills. The program, Civic Match, is building a pipeline for experienced public servants to stay in public service, even if they've been displaced by federal changes. You can check out their website at workforamerica.org/civicmatch. I want to recognize our county's Chief Innovation Officer, Michael Baskin, for connecting the county, state, and the University of Maryland to Civic Match's resources. When I conceived of the idea of having an innovation team, it was in part to foster productive partnerships like this to support our residents during challenging times. WorkSource Montgomery and Mobilize Montgomery are going to continue to coordinate more events and opportunities like this one. These programs are helping residents build skills, update resumes, and find their way into jobs, whether they're just getting started or if they're looking to shift careers. And we're identifying county positions that align with federal experience to help make that transition easier. I continue to remain concerned about the stress that this is causing so many individuals and their families. We want anyone going through this difficult transition period and struggling with their mental health to reach out to our 24-hour crisis center at 240-777-4000 or dial 988 if they need help. This week, Anthony Featherstone, the Executive Director of WorkSource Montgomery, joined me again on my media briefing, and here's what he had to share.
For WorkSource Montgomery, we have a variety of services that we're offering and that are, quite frankly, being utilized at a high level today within our job centers, both in person and virtually. So I always start with UI assistance, unemployment insurance assistance. So if you are unemployed and receiving unemployment insurance or trying to apply for unemployment insurance, there is assistance at the American Job Center located at 11510 Georgia Avenue in Wheaton. And you can walk in anytime Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, and get help in person. We have a job search platform, Maryland Workforce Exchange, that has thousands of open jobs right now. And so you can post your resume and search for jobs and connect with employers directly through that platform. If you're looking to strengthen your skills, we have our Skill Up Montgomery Virtual Training Center that offers over 6,000 training modules, whether they're certification programs or professional development. If you are unsure of what your next step is, we offer virtual career coaching and in-person career coaching. But through our virtual career coaching program, you're able to take an assessment as short as 6 questions or as intensive as 60 questions and figure out what your strengths, interests, work values are, and figure out what the opportunities are here in Montgomery County and the region, as well as statewide. We also subscribe to the Google Career Dreamer platform. This is a new platform that was released by Google in February of this year. And it's an innovative tool that helps you take the job that you're doing, the jobs that you've done, and it helps you find the opportunities that are available today. And so it will take that information and actually do a job search for you and put those opportunities in front of you so you can put a quality application in to those employers.
This April, we're celebrating Earth Month across Montgomery County, and we've already had some great events. We're marking the 10th anniversary of our Tree Montgomery program, which has planted more than 18,000 shade trees at schools, homes, and places of worship, and throughout our neighborhoods. And later this month, we'll celebrate 10 years of Greenfest, our largest and most popular environmental event. These programs matter. They connect people to action. They show how local government can support healthier communities and a more sustainable future. But I also want to acknowledge what's happening beyond our county, because this Earth Month comes at a very difficult time. We've already seen this administration dismantle parts of HHS, NIH, and FDA. Now they're turning their attention to climate and earth science, targeting the work being done in NOAA and NASA, two of the most important scientific agencies we have when it comes to understanding climate change and protecting lives from extreme weather. They're also internationally renowned. What they're doing is reckless. They're undermining decades of progress that the public depends on for early warning, for research, and for long-term planning. This also hits close to home. We have hundreds of residents in our county and across the region who work at NOAA in Silver Spring or College Park and at NASA Goddard in Greenbelt. These are people who've dedicated their careers to understanding our planet and helping keep communities safe. Now their work is under threat. These cuts aren't abstract. They're going to slow down climate monitoring. They're going to weaken effective weather prediction. They're going to make it harder to respond to natural disasters in a timely manner, which you know are becoming more severe and more frequent. This is a real fear. If you remember, during his last term as president, he actually told people that a hurricane wasn't going to land where scientists had projected, and he said it was going to land someplace else. Had first responders followed the president's distortion of reality, they would have been at the wrong place at the wrong time, creating far worse impacts for the people who got hammered by the hurricane. Fortunately, the president was ignored. He doesn't like being ignored. Did he admit he was wrong? Absolutely not. So yes, we're going to keep celebrating Earth Month. We're going to keep planting trees, expanding solar, pushing towards zero-emission transit, and holding polluters accountable. But we're also going to keep calling out the attacks on science and standing up for people who do this work every day. If we want to build a future that's safe and sustainable, we can't ignore the threats or stay silent while progress is being torn down. Before I wrap up, I want to take a moment to recognize our 911 call takers and dispatchers during National Public Safety Communications Week. Being a 911 operator is one of the hardest and most important jobs in the county government. They are the first voice you hear in an emergency, and they stay calm and focused during the most stressful moments anyone can face. They help save lives every single day, and we don't thank them enough for the role they play in our public safety system. We're also currently hiring 911 representatives. If you want to serve your community and help save lives, I encourage you to apply. This is a rewarding job that comes with great benefits and career opportunities. So I want to thank all of our public safety communicators. We appreciate you. And that's a wrap for this week, and I hope I'll see you again next week. Take care. Have a great weekend.